Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's on the Pile. I'm Nathan Besner, and joining me is Shane Lee,
What's up?
Jane Belcastro,
Alva?
Matt Wagner,
It's Wagner.
and Jenner.
I am going to freely allow in advance that a lot of this episode is going to be me straight up fanboying about our greatest living actor, the true hardest working man in show business, one Nicholas Kim Coppola, nay, Nicolas Cage. Let's get to it.
You know, I still have something that I read, the scripts that I have.
Sorry.
We've got a double feature from one of the most well-respected, despised, and feared, and perhaps most dangerous actors in the world, Nicolas Cage. Our first movie, Color Out of Space, was directed by Richard Stanley of last week's Dr. Moreau documentary episode, from a story by HP Lovecraft. Color Out of Space tells its story of cosmic horror and madness, Lovecraft's bread and butter, as a hapless, doomed gardener family is stalked by a sentient being that cannot be described. Following that is Vampire's Kiss, possibly Cage's masterpiece, which tells the story of Peter Lowe, a gross 80s guy with a bizarre accent, who believes he is becoming a vampire. But first, I wanted to talk about Color Out of Space. I had not seen this, so it was on my pile. Anybody else?
I've seen half of it.
Okay.
Watched it repeatedly.
Yep, I've seen it. I think I saw it during one of my October marathons. I'm assuming 2 years ago when it first came out. But yeah, I'd forgotten how intense it was, but yeah, I'd seen it already.
Yeah.
It's I had been wanting something like this as a follow-up to the bizarre insanity of flicks like From Beyond for a long time, and it's rare that they get back to that place.
Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you, Matt. I thought this was certainly one of the best fed, so to speak, HP Lovecraft adaptations, but also one of the ones that really got the cosmic part of the horror of it all. So I really... I first caught this when it was in the VOD channels back around the beginning of 2020, but was a absolutely welcome revisitation on the UHD disc, which it turns out doesn't have HDR, which is a bit of a surprise because apparently that's not an error. But even so, great movie, great disc. Happy to revisit it.
I was given a fair warning before coming into this movie from Mr. Wagner over there. Thank you very much.
I was not.
Thank you, Dr.
from-
Wagner.
Sorry.
I was not given appropriate warning, Jenner.
I'll freely allow that I had forgotten about some of the unfortunate things that happen here and there.
Yeah,
That is kind of the most notable thing that happens in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's at least as far as I was concerned. Yeah.
We're
It's like-
talking about the child endangerment.
Yes,
Yep.
That
yes,
occurs in
we're
this
talking
movie?
about
Children
the child
in peril.
Yeah,
Mhm.
children in peril, and
And
I guess,
animals in
I guess
peril.
we are jumping way ahead into the movie at this point, but
Yeah, but that's our initial impression. It is mine.
yeah, no, mine as well. The mother and young son are fused together by the entity into one being, and they are writhing in pain for the remainder of the film, or at least most of the remainder of the film.
Which is about still 40 minutes of the film. So
Right.
it's not like this is the last 5 minutes or anything.
Yeah, this is
Mm-mm.
not that deep a spoiler. It happens fairly early into even meeting the entity and dealing with that.
I would characterize it as pretty much the second to third act turn, but there's quite a lot of the movie left after there. But as kind of a benchmark of the way that the movie kind of starts slow and then ramps up and ramps up and up and up and up, it's definitely one of the signal points in the movie.
Well, I don't know how I felt, honestly, because I never deal well with child endangerment, and in this particular case, it's very gruesome child endangerment,
Mm.
and I was horrified throughout the course of the film, just really turned off. But
Me too.
I'm not sure if I liked the film or not because of that. I'm really not sure. I think that it might have been unnecessary from my point of view, but not from Richard Stanley's, who
Mhm.
seemed to enjoy doing that sort of insane thing. Like in the documentary, he was talking about doing having the Panther Girl get get eaten by the dog people and cooked up, and that's how they find her. They find her chopped up and eaten and by the dogs, and the dogs don't even remember doing it because they're dogs. And that's a very Richard Stanley thing. So I could see why he would gravitate toward this material and probably want to do something about like the deconstruction of family and going back to the womb for the fusing together. But it just
there's a sort of interesting angle to that as well that caught me at this point. There is a direct implication early on in the film that the mother has had a double mastectomy.
Yeah.
And there is it's not Freudian in the general way people think of that, but a Freudian interpretation of that she is no longer able to act as the organic mother to her child by providing milk, and the source of the injury, the wound across her chest, is where the child becomes merged to her. And that strikes me as exactly the sort of thing that Stanley would put into the film without ever drawing attention to it, just to see if anybody caught on to that.
I thought it was her back. I thought he was on her back.
He came in, she was clutching him, and he passed through her chest, out her back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
Would it have been better if if the son had switched roles with Lavinia, and that's how he had gone? Because they all have to go, the way the movie proceeds. Like, would it have been better if he'd fallen down the well, or if he'd been at the end, the one who welcomes the cosmic overlords? Or
I might have been a little better with him falling down the well. I don't know, just because it wasn't so graphic. I mean, that scene, that whole situation, it started out, like, okay, so the movie's going to, like, cut you. And now it's going to take a piece of sandpaper and rub against that cut for the next half hour. Over and over and over. I mean, I was just completely nauseous about, like, after about 5 minutes of it. But they're like, whining and howling and whatever through the whole thing. It never stops. It never stops.
That is sort of the intent of it. There's an old story about, I think King described Lovecraft this way, saying that in the descriptions Lovecraft offered, he discovered an approach to horror which now is largely ridiculed, but was revolutionary at the time, in that whenever you open the door, whatever is behind the door is never as frightening as when the door is closed. So anything that they can show you would be, not something your mind can comprehend. And it looks in the film like they're doing that. Like, we see Cage's reaction, we see Lavinia's reaction to what has happened to the mother and child on the ground. And you have some idea, I guess they've died, or, they must be horribly injured, And then we finally get a look at it, and we're like, okay, that is actually worse than anything I could have imagined.
That's one of the things.
Kind of a masterpiece in that. Yeah,
that's absolutely one of the things that I appreciated about it. Is it's somebody finally tackling Lovecraft with the visual imagination to pull off whatever you're thinking of. It's actually worse.
Mm-hmm. There are very few occasions where I've run into someone who could actually do that, and it's interesting that there is the very slightest touch of tongue-in-cheek about the film, located in exactly one spot. Very slightly in one spot during the opening credits, when the film describes itself as hot pink horror.
I missed
in a movie, it says hot pink horror at the very beginning. I don't know if that's the name of the production company or what, but just that tiniest bit of flavor is the only amount of tongue-in-cheek in the entire film.
Outside, possibly,
of Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Well,
you saw where I was going with that.
I think that that alpaca shooting gallery scene had a bit of tongue-in-cheek to it.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I was having flashbacks from Hardware.
I was having flashbacks from Dust Devil.
I was having flashbacks from The Thing.
A little bit of that. Definitely a bit of that as well.
I felt a little Evil Dead in there.
Again, The Thing being another example of something, not actually a Lovecraft adaptation, but something with the visual imagination, or a visual imagination that would suit a pretty close Lovecraft adaptation. But, in this case, Stanley likes to blow up one head and get people splattered by it in at least once in basically every movie that he's made. I don't recall directly, although I think it did happen in Hardware. It definitely happened in Dust Devil.
I think it happened in the bathroom scene.
You're right. I think so.
In
Yeah, no,
Hardware.
he likes to
that movie.
he likes to blow up at least one head per movie. That's the takeaway there.
Oh man, whose head would have been blown up in Dr. Moreau then? Again, I haven't seen the movie, haven't read the story. I don't know
Dr.
where a head.
Moreau.
Dr. Moreau, does he die in the
Dr.
end?
Moreau dies midway through the story, so presumably his head would have blown up.
Brando's head. Interesting.
That would've been a big
Either
juicy
that or
melon.
maybe one of the dog men. If you're putting down the dogs, you're pretty much shooting them in the head. That's
Oh, and I
pretty
did
much
notice.
where I can see that.
I did notice near the end, Nicolas Cage was watching a Marlon Brando movie. I wonder if that was a nod to his
Well, I mean,
relationship with Brando.
There's definitely some in-jokes built into the film, like the big lettering on the older brother's wall says "No flesh shall be spared," which of course is the poster tagline from Hardware.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh,
I was
wow.
just, that was a detail I noticed and didn't know what to make of it, and then promptly forgot about it because then in that scene things started to go to hell, and I was a little bit distracted.
You had other things to pay attention to.
There was a lot of purple to look at.
Or hot pink.
Or hot pink.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Some
the color out
undescribable
of
color in
space
between.
is,
Well,
hot pink.
Noting that sort of the distinct in-joke there in that there is no single light beam that is magenta. It's just a 50-50 mix of the low end of the visual spectrum with the high end of the visual spectrum.
Oh, that's clever. Okay, I didn't realize that's where he got it from.
Yeah, that was the idea. And it is a very distinctive magenta. So yeah, no, the visual design of the film is marvelous. One of the things that really did come through beautifully in the 4K transfer as well, because there is a lot of near black detail buried in this picture that really benefits from the native 4K transfer of the native 4K film. If anything, because nobody has a particularly good fire and forget HDR calibration for their TV set, I can actually see not including the HDR in the 4K version just because it probably would have thrown things out of skew.
Okay.
This is my end of ranting as a consumer electronics junkie.
We watched it on the 65-inch TV, not the projector. So
yeah, we saw it on the projector the first time, but
yeah.
Or you? No, it is a physically hellishly beautiful film, to borrow a phrase that I think somebody once said about Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace, and has probably been aped for things like Suspiria. It is one of the most colorful horror movies ever made. Not even pun intended, just simply an observation of the thing, outside of stuff that was actually done in Technicolor.
I had absolutely no problem and no issues with any of the color, the angles, the lighting. I mean, just gorgeous until it did ruin it for me when they went there, when they went after the children. That was kind of done.
I always claim that movies are not brave when they save their children, when they're trying to be edgy and edgelordy, and this one actually does not save its children. And I'm like, I don't know if I actually wanted that.
Be careful what you get bent about, Besner.
Well, I mean, this what I'm hearing from Besner and from Jane is that this was an amazing experience, and then it got to a point in which the natural continuity of the ideas in the story led us to a place you really didn't want to dwell in. Yep. And I mean, there's no problem in saying that I don't want my entertainment to go there. I have no problem with topics like this. There are a handful of other things. I have literally only ever been offended by one movie. We're not getting into that. And I love, more than anything else, I love when a story goes somewhere I don't expect, when they tell me a story that I haven't been told before. So I don't have any problem with deviations like this. And this isn't an edgelord thing. This is not I can take horror that other people can't. That's bullshit. And there's plenty of there's
Well, I
plenty of
think
horror that
maybe
I
what
don't
it is,
touch because I know I can't handle it.
Yeah.
I think what
So,
it is that it was done so well. And for myself, I'm not going to speak for Nate. It sucked us in or sucked me in so far that it was just too much. It was just too much. It did what it was supposed to do, but I'm just
Just
particularly sensitive to that kind of thing. And it was
so
Yeah.
just crossed
please,
way
just
out of your comfort zone
yeah,
or the
yeah. Which to
the
yeah.
for some
area of
people
your
they look for
taste
that.
inclinations.
A
Yeah.
lot of
So
people look for that
mhm,
hit of like something. It's just for me too much, which is it's
Yeah.
which is
fine.
fine.
I'm
There.
not saying y'all nasty for liking
Yeah.
this.
It
It's
also
more like I couldn't deal with it. It was
yeah.
too good. It was
It
too good.
also
It was
has to
too well done. It was so
it
well
has to
done
do
that I
with
believed it.
perspective too.
Hmm.
It has to do with perspective. Because when I saw Jack in the movie, I had a completely opposite perspective. Because first, I'm the father of a daughter. Not that excludes me or anything, but I have worn glasses since I was 6. I didn't identify Jack as a child I need to protect. I identified as Jack. So I am used to being the target of the horror films I watch. And, the horror films are attempting to come after you, the viewer, in one way or another. So I took it completely in stride that they were going to be doing something ill to Jack in the course of the movie. Just
In the
because I
meantime,
identified completely as the poor little kid with Coke bottle glasses.
in the
Oh.
meantime have been inoculated not so much by reading Lovecraft's original story, although I did read that ages ago, but by having seen at least 2 of the 4 other previous adaptations of Color Out of Space. The 1965 Boris Karloff vehicle Die Monster Die. I have not seen The Curse, the 1987 very loose adaptation with Will Wheaton and David Keith. I have seen Color from the Dark, the 2008 version, which was actually pretty close to this, just a little underfed in terms of its, pretty close to the source material, just a little underfed in terms of its budget.
Was that the German one?
No, that was the 2010 one, Die Farbe.
Okay, Die Farbe.
That one I still need to see. That's an interesting approach in that it's entirely in black and white except for the color itself, which I think is red in that movie. But in any case, I know that nobody makes it out of this story alive, or at least almost nobody. In this case, the hydrologist. Parse this, if you will. It's a black man named Ward Phillips. Howard Phillips. Okay, that's an interesting. That's actually a discreet fuck you to the source material, but that's a good thing in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I haven't read the story. I'm not sure how close it is, but is this a metaphor for like progress and tolerance? Is this something that Lovecraft saw as pervading? No. I mean in the other way. No. I mean in the opposite way. He saw the progress and tolerance as a bad thing that was pervading. No, it's not that.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So
that was actually
because it's an encapsulation of basically his entire idea of cosmic horror. Lovecraft himself. The Color Out of Space was the only story that Lovecraft thought had any worth in it. All the rest of his work, Lovecraft handily dismissed as being potboiler, as being pulp trade stuff. He thought there was actually the kernel of something worthwhile in The Color Out of Space, largely because of the approach to what he termed the cosmic horror, which again is a term that people laugh at today because it is an approach to horror which is rendered ineffective if you just point at it and laugh, because you have to buy into it for it to affect you. But his intent with the story was an encounter with something not just beyond human experience, but beyond human capability of understanding. The idea of a color that comes from space and destroys the farm and everything around it, causing it all to disintegrate into ashen dissipation. And in that respect, it was probably the closest crystallization to the essential core of what he was trying to write.
Something that cannot be reasoned with.
It's not even. It's something that reason doesn't even make sense of.
Yeah,
Okay.
reason
Yes, exactly.
it would be a fundamentally alien concept here. But no, I like I say, you noticed this even before I did when we saw it last night. That of course, after the color dissipates, the movie for a couple of minutes, just because of the ash everywhere, literally goes to monochrome, which is kind of a beautiful visual effect in its own right.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And I like the dog, Sam. Let's talk about things we liked. I liked the dog. I liked
I liked the color. I
I
really
liked-
The color was
yeah, I did
beautiful.
too.
I
I
liked
like the way when well, I'm sorry, Shane, but I did like
Right.
the way when Nicolas Cage went evil. He would become Peter Lowe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yes,
kinda
exactly.
thinking-
He started
I'm
using
thinking-
that accent. It was
I
weird.
know. I was thinking that maybe like Richard Stanley was on the set and he says, "So, whenever the alien takes you over, I think that you should sound like Peter Lowe." And he's like, "Why, Richard? Do you really think so? Because I'm not sure." Or whatever, how like Peter Lowe, and he'd be like, "Yes, mate, that's it, exactly. Do that."
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Well,
Okay,
what a-
now I'm sorry, I interrupted everybody. So go
No,
for
no,
it.
Well, I mean, one of the odd things that you notice about Nicolas Cage is in his fairly early movies, like Valley Girl or Rumblefish, he actually is leaning a lot more into that sort of uplilted nasal delivery that Peter Lowe plays almost as a parody of, a lot more so than the kind of deeper baritone that he started really to cultivate around Moonstruck and Raising Arizona.
Yeah.
So-
In this one, I'll confess, the first time I saw the movie, I hadn't seen our other movie for this evening when I saw this the first time. And when he started doing it in the film, I did not like it initially. You kind of have to know that's coming and to know what it means when you're dealing with Nick Cage. Because the first time he really does it is when he's blowing up at Lavinia. And
Yeah.
he's doing the
Did you get the
I'll get the fuck
fuck
out of your
out of
way.
my face?
And it's
Never mind.
And-
I'll do you a
and
favor and get the
I was
fuck
like,
out of your
oh
face."
god, he's gonna ruin this movie. No, he didn't. So I'm glad he didn't. But
Yeah, no, like I say, as I say, the whole movie is this kind of ramping intensity, but damn it all, if Cage isn't just riding that wave straight the fuck up until
but
the
have to
last
know how
act where
he
he's got,
rides
yeah, want a drink? I'll have one.
This is
yeah.
easily not even the weirdest thing he's done.
Not even
No.
close.
Yeah.
It isn't the weirdest thing he's done in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That is
I mean,
true.
even and Dad Mode Cage was really charming. I forgot that he could actually do that. It's been a long time since I've seen him just be a guy.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really nice too. I appreciated it.
Yeah, his relationship with Jolie Richardson before things went completely sideways and pear-shaped had a very, very natural kind of romantic, loving, long-time married couple who are still into each other quality to it.
And
It
even
was-
when it goes pear-shaped, it has a very natural quality to it when the family starts disintegrating. The rage-induced outbursts that he knows they're stuck out there, and suddenly he discovers that this crop that he thought was actually the one thing was going well, and oh wait, no, they all taste like shit.
Yeah.
And
I like when he's like, "Lavinia, feed your mother." Ah!
No, it's this poor
I'm
schlub
joking.
who
It was
is
awful.
trying through whatever means are at his disposal, which is not a lot, to maintain the integrity of his nuclear family unit. Nuclear doing a lot of heavy lifting in that phrase there. Thank you. But trying to keep them all together, even if that means some of them being inside other ones of them.
Really,
Oh.
the film does have a couple of sort of plotting flaws and like stupid horror movie decisions. Primary of which was when the brother decides to go down the well.
Yeah.
That is sort
Yeah.
of the yell at the screen moment, but at the same time makes for a wonderful visual when you get those looks at the bottom of the well, and you can see that there is something physical that is actually moving down there. I still can't make out what the hell it is, but
Yeah.
it's worth it for the visual. I mean,
I would have believed it more if we had discovered that the brother's crop that he had been smoking illicitly had also turned a little magenta. But That would have explained some of
That's
his
the
motivations
Lovecraft
a little
parody that the world needs.
smoke
Smoke
out of
Smoke
space.
from out of space. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we did have Tommy Chong.
Exactly.
I love the alien plants, the alien insects. I mean, really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's something that Stephen King has played around with a lot too. I'm sure he was influenced heavily by Lovecraft. I mean, he has
Oh,
an entire
absolutely.
Oh yeah.
he has an entire book from a Buick 8, which is about that kind of stuff just coming out of a car and showing up and people not knowing what to make of it.
Yeah.
And I
if
thought
you read
this was
if you read Dance Macabre, he goes on at great length about Lovecraft. Sorry, go ahead.
that's pretty much it. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But I thought it captured it well without looking goofy, because it really could have just looked cheesy, or it didn't look like fake plastic, purple flowers. It looked like something that didn't belong there and was beautiful, but just
Wrong.
unsettling. Yeah, just wrong.
I mean, that's the thing, is it's a movie where you believe what you're looking at, which makes it all the more unnerving if it's launching past your comfort zone.
It makes one sad that we didn't get Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. Just because of
Yeah.
his design, his talent for design is phenomenal.
Mhm.
It looks so good, and I can't imagine what it would have looked like, what that movie would have looked like, that story, with his metaphysical ideas and
I mean,
whatnot.
I want to see Richard Stanley's From a Buick 8 now. I think he would crush it with
Ooh.
that. I know they've been trying to kick around that as a movie for. I mean, every King book has been kicked around as a movie for as long as they've been around. But I think that would be something he would be really great at.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about Island of Dr. Moreau is especially on the heels of this, I would have been really interested to see what Stanley would have actually done with the colonialist subtext of Wells' original material. Read a certain way, you can absolutely look at the Island of Dr. Moreau as a metaphor for the British withdrawing from the colonies. Or at least a wish fulfillment fantasy about everything going to shit when the empire recedes. I would have been interested to see what a South African from the present day or the modern era, the post-apartheid or the pre and post-apartheid era, would have made of that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I don't know. So it might happen yet. I don't know. I mean, he's sorting through some legal issues at the moment. We will see how that goes. Kind of reserving judgment on that one. Anyway.
Wait,
still,
Richard Stanley's going through legal issues?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not aware of those.
Well, he had an abuse accusation which caused Spectrevision to drop their relationship with him. Interestingly, it was an abuse accusation dating back to 2014 from his prior life partner and at least co-writer on Color Out of Space. So apparently they stuck together for quite a while after that. But at the same time, it's gone at this point to basically suing back for libel and slander, tortious interference, that sort of thing. So it's getting litigated. Apparently, he didn't say anything for quite a while, but they kept at him. It was ruined the 3-picture Lovecraft deal, at least for the near term. Again, going back to don't know the story. Aside from what little bit I've been able to glean from the press, most of the people who know the parties involved who've bothered to comment seem to think that the accusation in the first place was a load of horsepucky, but we don't know. Leaving that aside for the moment. Yes, extraordinary visual imagination.
I forgot that I said that way back.
Yes, I was gonna say at worst, recall the saw that I keep having to come back to. Your fave is problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any final thoughts on Color Out of Space?
So,
wow, my brain farted there for a minute.
Forgot what movie we were reviewing.
Yeah, what the hell?
So, Andy started the podcast by noting that he was going to be singing the praises of Nicolas Cage as the, greatest and possibly most dangerous living actor.
That was actually a mix of what I said and what Nate said, but yeah.
So, I can actually do it one better in light of the previous episode and Richard Stanley's entire history on the Dr. Moreau set and all of the trials and tribulations there. In the behind-the-scenes piece on the Blu-ray, which was only like 20 minutes long, which was a bit of a disappointment, Richard Stanley said of Nicolas Cage that Nicolas Cage restored his faith in Hollywood.
Oh.
Wow.
Which might be the most significant compliment he could offer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wow.
Wow.
See,
I'm a little misty. I'm telling you, that's
I
beautiful.
told you, by all accounts, the guy is an absolute joy to work with.
Mhm.
And he likes to work. I mean, in 2019, this was a 2019 picture, he had a total of 5 other released narrative films from that year. This was on the heels of having 2 voice roles and 5 live action roles in 2018.
Ooh.
Last year was so sad because all we got was The Croods and Jiu-Jitsu, where he's great and the movie's terrible.
The Croods too.
The Croods too. That's right. And
Wait,
Was that
last year was
You mean
Pig too.
2020?
Or
no,
is that
this
what-
this year was Pig. This year, or
No, not this year.
No,
This
no,
is-
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting. It's 2022. The year before, 2020. Lockdown
Oh, okay.
fever.
Yeah.
We only got 2 relatively minor movies. 2021, thank God. Willy's Wonderland, aka store brand Five Nights
So
at Freddy.
fun.
The
So
store-
fun.
Oh yeah, no, that movie is an instant cult classic. It's
Mhm.
one of the ones that people are still talking about. Mostly
It's also
due
one
to
of-
the,
it's also
mostly
one
due
of-
to the stuff that Cage does in the movie.
Yeah, and it should be noted it's one of the few silent roles for Nicolas Cage.
Yes. But then on the heels of that, Prisoners of the Ghostland, which is spectacular. If even Cage, it's a lot more a Sion Sono movie than a Cage movie, but Cage is game, even if he has acknowledged that he's still kind of not quite sure what the fuck it was about. But then, oh good lord, Pig.
So good.
So unbelievably good. I swear they need to retire the Best Picture or the Best Actor Oscar on the basis of that movie, or at least in the future Oscars split up the categories into Best Performance by Nicolas Cage in a movie and give the award to the movie, and otherwise Best Lead Actor in a movie who is not Nicolas Cage. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and take our break. Join us for the Nicolas Cage Power Hour, which we will continue after this. And we're back. Next up is Vampire's Kiss. But before we get to that, Jenner, you wanted to say something about Color Out of Space still.
Yeah, just one last little superlative. We have a saying around here that when Bob likes a horror movie, Bob is my older brother and he's not a big horror fan. When Bob likes a horror movie, that's kind of like when a dog won't eat something. It's an opinion you go with. Bob liked Color Out of Space.
All right. Awesome.
I don't know what to take of that comparison, considering our dog regularly wants to eat things that will kill it. So
Well, I mean, similarly, it's not that because Bob doesn't like a horror movie, it's bad. It means that if he does like a horror movie, it's good. That's kind of the takeaway there.
yeah.
Anyways, thank you for your indulgence. Continue.
Yes. Okay, so next up is Vampire's Kiss with a tour de force performance by Nicolas Cage. Some consider this to be his masterpiece. In it, we follow Peter Lowe, a yuppie who thinks he's turning into a vampire, but clearly isn't. This was not on my pile. I love this movie. I've seen it several times. I'm a big fan. So whose pile was this on?
This was on mine.
This was on mine. Okay, first of all, I thought this was a vampire movie, so I was very confused
That's why
for a long
it
time.
failed when it was released. You were not alone in that misapprehension.
Also, so I'd seen like a clip of like the alphabet scene, and maybe a couple other scenes. I thought that those scenes were I thought this was a relatively normal performance, or I thought it was going to be a relatively normal performance with a couple of cuckoo scenes in it. I didn't realize his very speech pattern from the get-go was going to be cuckoo. So that took a little bit of getting used to. I don't know what that accent is supposed to be.
It's fucking glorious.
It's so bizarre.
I don't understand how he could go in and be directed every day to mock the material he'd been given. Because that's what the accent sounds like. It sounds like him making fun of the script.
It does.
Yeah, now that you say that makes sense.
Or Dutch Americans.
Is that what they sound like?
He sounds a little surfer dude-ish even at times.
Like I say, that's a little bit of that early Cage coming back through. I think, think about Valley Girl, as I said, or some of his fairly early stuff. He had a lot of that sort of quality in his voice. In this case, however, he just kind of I don't know. It's kind of like when I try to do a Maine accent. I actually had a Maine accent once, but at this point it comes across as sort of a parody of itself if I try to imitate it. It's kind of leaning back into that, as I said earlier, upwards lilting nasalness.
Oh, you mean Pepperidge Farm remembers?
You know what it reminded me of? I went back and watched when Jimmy Fallon played Nick Cage on Celebrity Jeopardy on SNL, and that is the voice that Nick Cage was doing in this movie. the voice that later became the parody version of him.
I have to say that watching this movie for the first time lent a lot of insight to him, specifically in Color Out of Space, but pretty much everywhere else I've ever seen him, because I didn't realize there was a film in which he did that for the whole movie, instead of just where he was going berserk.
Oh no, this movie is a meme factory. There's so much odd stuff going on in this movie. Like, one thing that I noticed, and it had been ages since I had seen it, but it was again a very gratifying revisitation. I had forgotten that the movie is mostly shot and edited and scored particularly like it is an actual horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
The scoring feels, almost like a riff on John Williams' score for the 1979 version of Dracula. The score plays it completely straight. The cinematography mostly plays it completely straight. The editing is nerve destroying. It almost is a horror movie. It's just a horror movie with a distinctly satirical bent to it.
And a crazy person at the center of it.
What exactly is his disorder? I was trying to figure it out.
Well, he's
narcissism.
And
I'd say narcissism is
narcissism
part of it,
starting to feed on itself.
But also he was
Dissociative
definitely having a
personality
psychotic break.
disorder.
I mean, he's not. Yeah, he does not know what reality is anymore.
Yeah, he's having a dissociative episode, as far as I can tell. And
But I think he was so narcissistic that he thought that he was, chosen by a vampire to be, his lover, and couldn't imagine her only wanting to do a one-night stand.
a narcissistic
Whether
personality
she
disorder.
was or wasn't a vampire, I don't know.
And
But,
it starts with a random bat attack. He's aroused by the bat. By the way, the woman has the strangest reaction to a bat flying into an apartment.
Hysterical laughter?
Well, no, she runs out screaming naked and then just starts laughing in the hallway while
well,
a
that's
child is
alcohol
watching.
for you right there.
I think that's more
what
than
alcohol will
alcohol.
do for you.
Yeah.
And apparently that was that Casey Lemon?
That was Casey
Yeah.
Lemons,
The director?
the director of Eve's Bayou, and Virginia Madsen's misfortunate sidekick from Candyman. Yes.
And the Caveman's Valentine, which I saw many years ago with Samuel L. Jackson, where he plays a crazy homeless man.
I
What I remember.
still haven't seen that movie. That's actually on my pile.
I saw it
Mine as
a
well.
long time ago, but it was interesting. I don't remember if I liked it or not. It was maybe 20 years ago almost.
I love
was a
Eve's
while.
Bayou. Eve's Bayou is great.
Yeah, that's on my pile.
Oh, is it?
Mine too.
Yeah.
We should do that in Caveman's Valentine sometime.
Good
Huh.
call. Give it
Yeah.
a hit some point. Anyway, but yes, the very wonderful Casey Lemons impressing in a relatively small role. And, girl, he ain't for you. Good Christ. Yeah, no, she got out while the getting was good, and that is as it should be.
So during that I guess so-called breakup scene where he's like, she broke up with me, and he's destroying the house, the apartment. Apparently they had to do that in one take because he was allowed to destroy the apartment, to actually destroy it, and they weren't going to set it back up. And so when he kicks that light bulb, he's really kicking a light bulb that shatters.
Well, this is famous as the movie in which Nicolas Cage does the things.
Yeah.
He actually. So how many cockroaches do you think he actually ate to get that take? Just one?
They say 3.
Okay.
There you go. So 3.
The man is
He's a machine.
legend.
He's a machine and a legend.
I have to say in regards to that eating a live cockroach may be the least remarkable thing he does in this film.
True.
And I have heard a story that John Leguizamo heard that he ate a live cockroach in Vampire's Kiss, and he became huge. And so John Leguizamo in turn ate a pizza covered in maggots, actual maggots, for Spawn. And it was because of Nick Cage in Vampire's Kiss.
That was misplaced initiative.
Yeah.
Sorry for
Yes,
John Leguizamo for doing that.
That is a wonderfully diplomatic way of putting that.
And I'm pretty sure
Jeez,
I think he had said it himself. I don't think it's apocryphal. It might be a made up story that he said himself, but John Leguizamo, I believe, actually said that.
Oh.
Anyways.
Because the people who know Cage is as their hero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is marvelous in this film.
Yeah, this is a performance with no ego, playing somebody with an enormous, literally monstrous ego, which is an extraordinary juggling act. Yeah.
it's literally astonishing. By about 20 minutes into the film, I couldn't believe that he was carrying this as far as he was carrying it, and the film was still being made. Because, I mean, it literally felt to me like in every scene, his accent was mocking the material he was doing by over-amplifying it to an absurdist extent. And I'm sure better people than I have tried to explain what it is Nicolas Cage does to become who Nicolas Cage is. And this, I think Andy was right that this is like a crystallization. This is like the epitome, or Nate said it was his masterpiece.
Yeah.
Of the Nicolas Cage acting school,
Well,
which only he does.
He refers to it as neo-shamanistic, which I think is another reason why he got along so well with Stanley.
Yeah.
Somebody else put it, and I always like this, in a world of classical actors and method actors, he is the world's reigning expressionist actor, which is again a style that is going to be steeped very much in the pantomimes of early silent pictures. But you can tell he definitely loves the German expressionist stuff in general. He produced Shadow of the Vampire and narrated the animated web series, for pity's sake. The guy's one of us.
I love when he's going through the club mimicking Nosferatu. The different hands. Yes. It's a visual element. Sorry, podcast listeners, but
no, we'll go watch the YouTube.
Yeah, watch the YouTube
version.
It's a performance that in anyone else's hands would have degenerated into the wrong kind of self-parody. We would have to characterize this, and it cannot be stressed enough how much fricking nobody got this movie the first time that it was released.
Was Cage big enough that they could have gotten it? When was this released? What was it between?
This was around Moonstruck, right?
This was actually right. This was his next project after 1987, which was when he did both Moonstruck and Raising Arizona. So this was.
I love Raising Arizona.
Yeah, I love it too. I would have guessed this was well before it.
Yeah, no, this was cashing in those chits directly.
And that is insane.
And the following couple of years, because this was an epic bomb. or at least a very, very limited release.
Well, he got a ton of money from me from the rental store. Man, that thing was out of Blockbuster every frickin' weekend. If I had anything to say about it, if I had $3 to go rent it.
Oh yeah,
I loved that movie.
This is one of those things that has turned from a long-time secret handshake into a genuine cult classic.
Oh yeah.
And watching it again, we all can see why, especially with the benefit of the hindsight, not least for everything that Cage has done since then.
It does have an incredible pedigree with what is it? Christian Bale based a lot of Patrick Bateman and American Psycho on this performance.
Yeah, I can
absolutely see that. I didn't know that, but I can see that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. He also said he based it on Tom Cruise. You know, the empty smile, the crazy eyes.
I can see that too.
Yeah, I can see that.
But this makes sense too. Maybe, I mean, it could have been both.
Yeah, I mean, I confess if I had run into this earlier in my film watching before Cage became what he is, I would not have known that this was genius. I'm not that good. I would have thought it was self-parody. I would have thought it would be a secret handshake among bad movie experts, not among secret genius experts. So
well,
sometimes what can I say? Really Thanks for the compliment.
Historical context becomes everything as things become history.
Yeah,
I would say Cage is a true artist when it comes to acting. Like,
absolutely,
he paints with a brush.
Okay, what I was saying earlier, I was in no way being facetious.
No. Well, and it wasn't on our pile this week, but have y'all seen Pig? That is fantastic. I mean, he's just so masterful in that role. Yeah. Very understated. He, sure, he can do these big, crazy things like, Vampire's Kiss, and then you watch something like Pig, and it's like heartbreaking and beautiful. So,
and I mean, here's the thing that I've observed a lot, and I have been catching up a lot lately on the work that Cage has been doing in the last decade that has mostly not gotten released to theaters. Some of the stuff like A Score to Settle or Between Worlds, which I think I've actually gone on at a little length about before. There is always, no matter how mediocre the film itself is, it's like I was saying about jiu-jitsu earlier, there is always something fascinating that he's doing somewhere in the movie. Just some odd little bit of business or something to that extent. Just something that feels like an improvised laugh line in an otherwise laughless movie. He's always doing the work. And
he has no ego about it, as far as I can tell. Like, he does something in this movie that I could never do, which is they had him running down the street. They were hiding with the camera in the shots in New York when he's running through the street saying, I'm a vampire, and the people's reactions is real. It's genuine because they're regular people.
Well, to be clear, Nate, he wasn't saying I'm a vampire. He was saying I'm a vampire.
Carrying his little stick of wood around.
Yes, that reminded me of the first episode of 30 Rock when Tracy Morgan's character Tracy Jordan is running through the streets yelling, "I'm a Jedi, I'm a Jedi," in his underwear. but I think that was actually referencing something that Martin Lawrence did when he had an actual breakdown in the streets. But
I remember that. That was Heat Stroke.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Bad case.
I remember that.
I have a question for everybody. He says in the movie that he raped Alva, but
I don't think he did.
I don't think he did.
I don't think he did, but I confess that feels like a cop-out of the material from an era where a rape joke would have been acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, you could very easily say that, you're just saying that to cop out of the fact that this includes a rape as a joke.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a sexual assault of some sort.
Yes. And he straight up traumatized her, I mean, she was not okay after that.
Yeah, the important...
anything that traumatizes you is enough.
Yeah. And ultimately, the important thing for the narrative is that she believes that she was raped.
Or, I mean, she never actually says it. She could just have told her brother that she was assaulted, and it still makes perfect sense as far as the plot goes.
Yeah.
That's fair. I just don't feel like Cage... I don't feel like the character in the weird delusional state he was in would have been capable of something like that.
He did murder somebody with his fake teeth. I mean,
Yeah.
so
yeah, that there.
I'll take the plastic.
He looks so ridiculous.
When he's on the phone with his psychiatrist going sooner.
And he does. He kills that woman. He kills her with plastic teeth.
Yes, I know.
That is
I mean, and anybody that's played
Does she
with
bled
plastic
out?
teeth knows that actually takes some effort. I mean, no, I haven't tried to kill anybody with it, but you bite on things because you're playing.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything. They're just little fake hinged plastic, the little $2 plastic teeth.
Yeah. I found the ending interesting as well. I've always found the ending of this movie interesting because it didn't go in a direction that I expected it to. It's a very abrupt ending in a way, and it reminds me a little of the cut to black in American Werewolf in London. That abrupt kind of feeling, where you get Nicolas Cage getting stabbed through the heart with a stake by the brother, and then you get a shot of him dying, and then he's dead, and then that's it.
This is where the story concludes.
Yeah, there was nothing else to say, and we also, it wasn't so much that the brother was stabbing him; he was just helping.
Yeah,
he was
kill
just
himself.
helping.
I mean, because he was like determined. I love how he would scramble under his sofa like it was a coffin.
That ends up as the ultimate response to his insane plea to Alva to help him as he's menacing her. In his demented little brain, this is what happens to vampires. This is the conclusion of his existence as a vampire.
Well,
it comes as a sort of relief to him.
Well, yeah, but he had just been rejected by the girl who may or may not have actually been a vampire that he fantasized about.
Hell, he was just rejected by the woman who existed only in his brain.
No, she was in the club. I think he did meet her.
No, I'm talking about after. I'm talking about after that.
Oh,
the bit where he's having the imagined conversation with his psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Introducing him to her other client who would be perfect for him. Everything looks like perfect is perfect and wonderful, but within 5 minutes they're ranting at each other just inside the confines of his frazzled mind.
Yeah.
It's a breakdown. It's a breakdown inside a breakdown inside a breakdown.
Yeah.
I love it.
I thought there was a really cool shot during a scene where he's looking at himself in the mirror, and there's 2 mirrors in the shot, and he doesn't see himself, and he's moving in and out of frame of the mirrors. So he doesn't see himself, and he's not in the mirror. Then he steps forward. He's in the mirror. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but he's kind of moving in and out of the mirrors and not seeing himself and freaking out. And I thought that was just a really cool.
There was one particular shot where you could see him in 4 separate mirrors at the same time, and he was freaking out that he didn't have a reflection.
I thought that was the funniest part of the entire film, actually.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. This makes me wish that we had gotten more stuff, particularly more genre stuff from the director, Robert Bierman, who had made a moderately interesting thriller prior to this called Apology, and then apparently had been scheduled to direct The Fly before Cronenberg picked it up.
Oh.
I would never dream of wanting to actually live in a universe where Cronenberg did not direct the 1986 version of The Fly, but I'd kind of like to sneak into an alternate universe and see what Bierman's version would have looked like.
Yeah. I would be interested to see that as well. What else? What did he go on to do? I don't know a lot about him.
Mostly just a little bit of British TV work. He did a pretty decent 1996 adaptation of Wilkie Collins' novel The Moonstone that I saw ages ago, but I didn't even realize it was the same guy. It certainly did not have the signature insanity of this picture.
What does?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can get away with a lot when you work with Nicolas Cage. There are things that you can try in the realm in the art of filmmaking that you could not try on other sets, and I find that fascinating.
I mean, that's the thing is, I'll freely allow that the original script of this was probably a pretty straight, modest satire, mostly a horror film, except it's not actually a vampire movie. It's a psychological, breakdown picture. It's what Cage does in the movie, where everything surrounding him is played perfectly straight. That's the juice. This, like I say, it's not Cage's greatest movie, but it may well be his greatest performance.
Yeah, but also, I don't know if you guys noticed, like when they're in the office and he's going through the office full of women, and he's like throwing things off of people's desk, and they're like, "Oh, he's just so eccentric," like making excuses for him, where Alva's like absolutely frightened of him. So so that was a part of like the 80s that I remember.
80s boss.
I don't think it's coincidental that he's horrible to all of the women of color in this movie.
I also
No, that was a blonde lady that he did that, where he knocked the duck off, and she's all like, "Oh, isn't he eccentric?"
Well,
Isn't
okay,
that funny?"
I'll rephrase that the particular subjects of his menace are all women of color.
I could also sort of see that in its carryover into American Psycho with the was he actually doing any of this, or was this all in his head sort of attitude of the people around him carry over from this film, now that you've said there is a connection between the two.
I believe in American Psycho, it was all just a dream, right?
It's strongly implied that, but I think you're supposed to step away without being entirely certain.
I remember the book ends. It pretty much ends saying none of this happened.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I think that they were probably going for that, because I think the final line is something like, "And this confession means nothing," as he's figuring out that he did not have. One time I questioned whether or not this stuff was actually happening to him was when with the psychiatrist. I wrote down that the psychiatrist might not exist, because the psychiatrist, when he has the last conversation with her, it's a completely made up conversation. It's all in his head, obviously. And so you wonder, was she ever real?
That's a fair thought, because somebody as freaking narcissistic as this guy is probably not going to think he has any actual problems.
Yeah.
Well, except that, like when in the 80s, everybody was just going to a psychiatrist, not because they had to, but because it was the thing to do. It was, like good mental hygiene, and I don't know.
She didn't seem like a very good psychiatrist.
Yeah.
She didn't seem to be helping him any. So maybe it just was in his head that he had this made up psychiatrist who didn't know what she was doing. Because he doesn't know what a psychiatrist is supposed to do.
That makes sense.
A very fine turn by the always welcome Elizabeth Ashley. In any case,
wouldn't it be neat if
just after Dragnet?
Wouldn't it be neat if psychiatrist's job really was just to hook people up?
Because all you need is love.
Yeah, we've established that previously.
They get to know all of your deepest, darkest secrets, and they know how to pry you apart, and they know who you will match with. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's a movie right there.
I'm being sarcastic in case anyone's going to grill me for this.
But that would be an interesting movie, I think.
Yeah, it would. It would be an interesting movie, and it would end poorly. It would not be a romance film. Yeah. It would be a horror film.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be. Yeah,
realistically,
I'm a cautionary tale.
I'm a dystopian sci-fi film.
I'm amazed that some dating site or something to that extent hasn't ever leaned into dating choices curated by registered psychiatrists and psychologists. I'm amazed that hasn't happened in the real world, unless of course it has, and I just don't know about it.
Registered
I don't know. I mean, we were
asterisks.
when we met, Jenner and I met on OkCupid, and I answered like maybe 100 of their questions just because I'm like, hey, this is kind of fun. Click, and it matched us with like a 93% rating.
Mm-hmm.
It's been just fine.
We did pretty well.
Yeah, we're like almost into 9 years, so yeah. Hey.
I think
But
it was OK Cupid where I met Jess as well, where Jess and I met. She
See,
sent me a
it
message.
works.
So yeah, it does work. We met
Okay,
online.
Okay,
Okay, Cupid
Cupid
worked for us.
And if we
Alternately, you
could
could
get
just
any sort of sponsoring, I
Yes.
think that would be a really good plan. If you're listening, OK Cupid, or if you all know anybody who works for them, yeah, sponsor this show. We know what
alternately
we're
you
talking
could
about.
you could run a movie night for 8 years and hope somebody walks in off the street. So which is how I met my wife.
Aww.
Oh. But Vampire's Kiss.
Yes.
hmm
Yeah.
Delightful. One of my favorites forever and ever.
Yeah. Mostly
It-
due to the performance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
you
not
know,
much else to hang on to be honest.
No.
Yeah,
Am I getting
it
through
would have
to
been,
you, Alma?
yeah. Without Cage, this would have been at best I don't know, like a medium level programmer. Cage is the one that pushes this to the next level, but of course, unfortunately, nobody got it at the time. So this was in theaters. Hemdale, a major independent. This was in theaters for like a week, and then ended up in the slightly off-brand HBO video ghetto. Which where it lingered until it finally reached sell-through in something like 1995, which is when I ended up getting my copy, and that was how I finally saw the film, not having seen it the first time. Blinked a lot. It was like, I have to see this again.
Well,
So I think I saw it again for a couple of weeks later, and then I just remembered it relatively vividly ever since, and consequently hadn't revisited it until this last week.
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
let's be honest. This is not a film that you can advertise properly. If you advertise it for horror buffs, they're going to walk away disappointed. If you advertise it for the art house people, they're not going to go in the first place because they think it's a cheap horror film. This is a movie with no audience.
Yeah,
And
if you advertise it for comedy, then they're going to be disappointed that it's not actually the normal kind of funny.
yeah,
If I were to
audience.
if I were to characterize it as anything, it's an extremely dark comedy. But realistically, if they wanted to make a dime off it, they gave up the game when they actually went with the title
Yeah.
Vampire's Kiss.
they needed some sort of punny vampire title. I mean, I know Love at First Bite has been taken. I know there's a bunch of others that have been Dracula Dead and Loving It is taken. There's got to be others.
Yeah, and it didn't help them that the video box that it had on VHS for ages and ages and ages had Cage with some fake looking vampire teeth that were badly composited into the picture because they don't look like the vampire teeth that he actually had in the movie. Just Cage doing his
That might have been what I saw. That's probably
and-
what led me to think it was a vampire movie.
and a cape that he does not actually wear in the movie either. It was a very, very lazy piece of video packaging.
Nicolas Cage
Oh,
with clip
man.
art on him.
I kind of wish he had a cape.
I wish it had been
Yeah.
in clip art.
Well, he made a coffin out of his couch. and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice couch.
It was a
There
nice
was a nice
couch.
apartment before Nicolas Cage got to it.
It was a real leather couch.
All right. Well, does anybody have any final thoughts on Vampire's Kiss?
It'll always be one of my favorites.
Go into this movie for the first time braced.
Tongue firmly in cheek, maybe.
Yeah.
Just go with it. Your response is legitimate. I see you.
But keep watching.
But keep watching it, and maybe watch it a second time.
It
Cage
deserves it.
Cage is a master. Cage is a frickin' hero.
Well said. I think that's going to do it for us here on What's on the Pile. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at What's on the Pile. You can also find us on YouTube under the official Punch Bunny YouTube channel, or you can visit our website, whatsonthepile.com. Thanks for hanging out.